Hello there. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Colleen Klimczak. I'm an organizational and productivity coach and a certified professional organizer. I own Peace of Mind Professional Organizing, LLC. Since 2003, I've been helping my clients live better lives through organizing and organizational and productivity coaching. I support my clients and my community with coaching, in-person and virtual organizing, my weekly podcast called Your Organized Life with Colleen Klimczak, a free weekly virtual productivity session called Finish Line Friday, a free weekly email newsletter, and regular content on Facebook and Instagram. I also offer presentations and professional development to groups and companies. And coming soon, I will launch my membership circle to support my community with even more coaching and productivity content. Want to finish strong this week? Join me for Finish Line Friday every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central for a 2-hour productivity session. Drop me an email at colleen@peaceofmindpo.com to request my Zoom room link, or follow the Zoom room link on my Instagram or Facebook pages. Welcome to Your Organized Life, episode 174. Do you live near me here in Evergreen Park? Our Evergreen Park Public Library is having a craft supply swap. The weekend of Friday, April 17th and Saturday, April 18th in celebration of Earth Day. I am not a crafty person, but I wanted to share because I have talked about this with my clients and community before. And so if you are a crafty person, please take advantage of that. Check out the website for more information. Last week, a client asked me to help her organize a shared Google Drive and some paper documents. Specifically, she was in charge of an annual fundraiser last year, and before she turns over all the information to this year's team, she wants to organize her notes and the Google Drive to set this new team up to succeed, which is a kind and noble intention. Having been on the receiving end of disorganized notes from others over time, I respect her choice to set up the new group on solid footing. And as I expressed to my Finish Line Friday group the other day when I was working on this project, I love this kind of project. So the client had a lot of information, both digital and in paper form, and she asked if I could help it make sense. Could it be organized logically to make sense and also be easy to use and easy to find information from past years? And I replied quickly and offhandedly, yeah, sure, of course. Since all of her information is for 2025, I'll start every digital document title with 2025 and put the tabs in the binder for papers the same way. I'll look at what other teams have named things in earlier years and try to stick with that if that's what people have come to expect, because that will make the transition easier. And without even looking at the info, I imagine that there's a list of guests from every year, maybe promotional materials from every year, a menu and budget and expenses from every year, etc. So yeah, sure, I can do that for you. I'll start with naming conventions. And she said, what? She said, a what? And I said, a naming convention. It's a rule of thumb for organizing and titling data, like digital or paper, so that we can quickly and consistently find things again. I gave her an example. There are 4 years of files in the Google Drive that she shared with me. Sometimes digitally, we can use, last opened date to sort information or created date to sort information. But unfortunately, in this Google Drive, everything was reset sometime last year. So even if the document was from 2022, it still has a 2025 date. So that doesn't help. So my plan of attack was to open each file, read a few lines, and determine which year the info was from, and then name it accordingly, 2022, 23, 24, and then add the topic of the document to the file name. Promo materials are easy to date as they include the event date. So no problem. And she said, across the table, I'll still remember, how did you learn this? How do you know this? And it wasn't a doubting me, and she is brilliant, so it's not a lack of knowledge on her part either. But the question was, how do we sort our information, and how do we know how to do that? And honestly, I don't know how or where I learned this, but it's all around us. It's a strategy employed, everywhere. Consider scientific names for plants. We've got kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And yes, I totally had to look that up. But there's a naming convention, right? That's how it works. Consider how cars are named. I drive a 2022 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. Just those 4 details tell you a lot about my car. And the leap we can take once we realize that naming conventions occur all around us is that we can use that idea too. Many years ago now, I took training through my National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, NAPO, called NAPO in the Schools. I became a facilitator for this service project through NAPO, and the idea was we would go in and talk to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders about organizing. In the 45-minute presentation, we talked about what organized means, and we considered different people's different learning styles. It was really a great program. And the point of the presentation was to answer the question for these students, can you find what you need when you need it? I mean, really, when we're organizing, is that what it comes down to? Can you find what you need when you need it? And naming conventions help us find what we need when we need it. So as I explained the idea to the Google Doc client, she commented that this sounds like a podcast and newsletter topic. And so here we are. So let's get tangible, right? And consider an actual file cabinet with files and papers and how we can use naming conventions to organize our information. I've discussed focused areas in the past, so let's say the themes for my files in my file cabinet are my company, which the nickname for that is POM for peace of mind. My family, and we usually tag things on different people's information with their initials. So mine is MCK, right? I have home, I have personal, I have wellness and medical, I have music ministry, I have baptismal prep ministry, and then I have other volunteering. So if those are my focus areas, right, all of my files are going to start with one of those areas, one of those topics. Now, so each of my files might start with POM or personal, right? Or maybe I use the drawers of the file cabinet as part of the naming convention. As in, the top drawer of the file cabinet is for personal information. The middle drawer is for the business. And the bottom is for sheet music and ministry information, right? So one past client used file folder colors as part of her naming convention, if you want to think about it that way. Her house was yellow, so anything to do with her house, like bills and repair records, was in a yellow hanging folder. She worked for a local fire department, so all of her information for work, like training notes or professional development, memos, etc., that was all in red hanging folders. Her naming conventions were color specific because for her, that helped her to find what she needed when she needed it. In talking with yet another client recently, she mentioned a family member who was likely a hoarder, but this family member knew exactly where everything in their house was. The example that she gave was if the family member had saved an article for you from 4 years ago and you happened to stop by, the family member would go and find it amidst the hoard. And hey, that's a skill, right? But it's also a burden for that person. It requires a lot of brain space and a lot of energy to retain all of that information when there are better and easier ways to store and also retrieve information. Can we find what we need when we need it, right? So spending some time and effort creating naming conventions saves time and effort later. Maybe, just maybe, saving and then retrieving information can be a little easier. We can spend our brain power and energy in other ways instead of having to juggle all that information. We can invite others in to help us too when we don't have to rely on our memory and be the only person who knows everything. We can decrease our anxiety by having a reliable system that we trust. So now that I've introduced the idea, shared some instances where it helps, and encouraged you with reasons why you should give it a try. Let's look at the how. So we consider the different types of information we need to organize, either digital or physical information. I will say we need to organize it logically, but logic means different things to different people and different situations. So two very objective and logical ways of organizing information are chronological and categorical, right? So chronological, like my client and her Google Doc example, or categorical, like my focus area example and my client's color file example. So we need to identify what is important. You need to identify what's important to you. I need to identify what's important to me. And we also need to think about how we tend to retrieve that information. Do you retrieve a file on your computer by date or by the topic of the file? Right? So I'm a topic or categorical person. So my C drive on my laptop uses naming conventions for personal or business correspondence, right? That's the first part of the name. My calendar, which is already chronological, has events coded by color per category, right? That's a naming convention too. So I can focus in on types of events like, business specific are also blue. Ministry specific is also red. When I was still on the Board of Education and it was D124 specific, those were green. So I have the categories, and that is also a naming convention. So once we figured out what our categories are, we need to decide on a short nickname for your various focus areas. Like I said, mine are POM for the business, MCK, that's me, home, pretty easy, right? I also do a WLNS for wellness, for medical information or wellness. Ministry is pretty straightforward. And then I have things broken down for my parish specifically, which is MHR, and then other parishes that I sing at as well, right? So all of this is logical, consistent, duplicatable, and that's what we are going for when we are working with our naming conventions. And then the good news is we get to use them everywhere. So I use these naming conventions for file names in my computer, of course, but I've also mentioned that I use them on my calendar. I can also use them on my to-do list. They're also the file names in my physical file cabinet, right? Tags on my to-do list, all of those things. Same naming conventions can be used everywhere in my life that I need to find what I need when I need it, which is, all of them. So here's the success story using the client's fundraiser binder, papers, and Google Drive to illustrate. This event has been going on for at least 5 years now, and each year a different volunteer committee is in charge. The information changes hands every year, and having a logical name for the different types of documents that need to be generated every year sets the next team up to succeed. So every year's committee can look through the Google Drive and the paper binder and see that every year they need a budget and expense tracker. They need committee meeting notes. They need address lists for invitees. They need communication with the event venue and promo materials and checklists for the event days. Those are some of the recurring themes that I noticed going through the papers and the Google Drive. The event is always in June. The committee meetings always start in March. So this is what I learned when I reorganized the information, and that is how I chose the naming conventions for the different files. And looking at what came before helps us to see what we need to do now. All of that is facilitated by having consistent, logical naming conventions. Can we find what we need when we need it, right? So give this idea some thought this week, if it resonates with you. Start with awareness, just how many instances of naming conventions already exist in your day-to-day life, and then consider how you can use the idea to make life a little easier for yourself. Support like this around getting things done is what productivity coaching is all about. If it's time to invest in yourself and explore coaching for organizing and productivity, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line via email at colleen@peaceofmindpo.com or message me through my social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week.